The Holy Tales.
I've decided to tell you the story about Abram's big move. Are you kids ready?
Oh yes, always.
After Terah died, God had a special message for Abram. God told him to pack up his family and move away from Haran, but did not tell him where to go. He just told him to start traveling. God promised Abram,
I will bless you to be the father of a great nation. You will be famous, and you will be a real blessing to other people. All people on earth will be blessed through you, Abram.
Abram obeyed God and took his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot and left Haran. Abram was now 75 years old. He also took his servants and all the animals he owned and walked through the land of Canaan. When they were close to a city called Shechem, they stopped and set up a camp. Many people lived in that area, but God spoke to Abram again and said,
I am going to give this land to you and your children.
Abram was very happy, and so he built an altar for God. After a few days, a deadly famine struck Canaan. So Abram again started traveling. The famine made it very hard to find food. There was not a famine in Egypt, though, which meant there was food there. So Abram kept going until his family reached Egypt. As they were crossing into that country, Abram suddenly thought of something.
Sarai,
He said,
you are so beautiful that I'm worried about a problem that we may have. I'm afraid the Egyptians will see how beautiful you are, and they would want to kill me and let you live. So let's tell them that you are my sister instead of my wife. Then we can be sure they won't kill me, and my life will be spared because of you.
So Sarai told everyone that Abram was her brother instead of her husband. Sure enough, when the Egyptians saw how beautiful she was, they ran to tell the Pharaoh. Of course, the Pharaoh wanted Sarai to become one of his wives. So Sarai was taken into his palace. Pharaoh treated Abram well for her sake and gave him many wonderful, expensive presents in exchange for Sarai. He gave Abram sheep, cows, donkeys, and even servants. But God knew what was going on. He knew Sarai was Abram's wife and not his sister. He wasn't happy that the Pharaoh had taken Abram's wife. God sent terrible plagues on Pharaoh's household. It wasn't long before that Pharaoh had figured what had happened.
Why did you do this to me?
He asked Abram.
Why didn't you just tell me that Sarai was your wife? Take her and get out of here.
The Pharaoh said, Abram, Sarai, Lot, all the servants and everything he had were escorted out of the country.
That was a nice story, Holy. Oh, yes.
The Holy Tales.
Today's story is about the 12 spies. After Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, God led them through deep forests and jungles into the land of Canaan, the land which he had promised to them. When the whole nation of Israel camped at the edge of the land of Canaan, Moses sent one man from each of the 12 tribes of Israel to go to Canaan and explore Canaan and find out everything about it, as God had commanded. It was important for Moses to know the number of people who lived there, how they were, if the soil was fertile enough for them to grow good crops, and also what fruits and vegetables could grow on that soil. So the spies sneaked into the land and explored it for 40 days. After 40 days, they came back to report to Moses with samples of fruits and a huge cluster of juicy grapes. The whole nation of Israel gathered and were more than eager to know what the spies had to say about Canaan. The spies said,
The land of Canaan is magnificent. The soil is healthy and it grows healthy crops like we've never seen before.
and they showed them the fruits they had gathered.
But the people living there are like giants.
They said, 10 of the 12 spies said,
We felt like grasshoppers next to the people of Canaan. They're very strong and powerful, and the city is protected with strong walls. There's hardly any way we could take this land.
Only 2 spies out of the 12, Joshua and Caleb, said,
It's true that the people of Canaan are strong and powerful, and there are many of them, but we can't win against them. After all, God is on our side. Come on, let's all be courageous and do it.
However, the Israelites followed the 10 frightened spies and refused to take Canaan in spite of seeing all the miracles God had done. This made God angry that the people of Israel did not have faith in Him. He said that the present generation of Israelites will die before the nation is allowed entry into the promised land. He also said that the whole nation will wander in the forests and the jungles for 40 years. Only Joshua and Caleb will be allowed to enter the promised land.
What? 40 years?
Yes, Gumbo, 40 years.
The Holy Tales.
Today's story is about how the nation of Israel got divided. Solomon was the king of Israel, but he disobeyed God. God warned him that he will lose the position of the king if he continued disobeying him. So, Solomon left all his kingdom and wealth to his son, Rehoboam, who did not honor God either. Rehoboam was such a terrible king that it led to the division of the kingdom into 2 parts, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Jeroboam was the son of one of Solomon's officials, and Solomon had put him in charge of some work, as he was a very capable boy. One day, a prophet came to him and tore his own robe into 12 pieces.
Take 10 of the pieces.
He told Jeroboam,
This is what God says. I will give you 10 of the tribes of Israel. I will leave 1 tribe for Solomon's son, and 1 for the sake of my loyal servant, David.
This angered Solomon, and he tried to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam escaped to Egypt. When Solomon died, his son Rehoboam became the king of Israel, and he went to Shechem, where officials had gathered to crown him the king. The people of Israel, along with Jeroboam, went to speak to Rehoboam about the heavy taxes that were imposed on them by King Solomon. They requested him to lighten the load, and they would be his loyal subjects.
Give me 3 days to think about it.
Rehoboam responded. He took the situation to some of King Solomon's advisors, who advised him to do as per the demands of the people. This would ensure the loyalty of the people of Israel towards Rehoboam. But Rehoboam ignored their advice and did what the younger men told him to do.
Tell them to stop complaining, or else you will pile more taxes on them and need more labor.
3 days later, when the people of Israel came to hear Rehoboam's response, they were upset. He had rejected all their requests. Rehoboam sent a man of his force to restore order and subdue the people into serving him. but the people of Israel stoned the man to death. The northern tribes of Israel refused to serve Solomon's son and made Jeroboam their king. This is exactly what God had planned and warned Solomon years before.
Solomon should have obeyed God and simply listened to him. Then the nation wouldn't be divided. To watch more videos, please subscribe.
Plants and trees. On the fourth day, God created the sun to shine in the day, the moon and stars to come out at night. One day, Moses went to Mount Horeb with his sheep. There, God appeared to him as a flame of fire in a bush. Since there was no room anywhere else, they decided to spend the night in a stable. Here, Mary had her baby, Jesus. She wrapped him in a blanket and put him to sleep.
He's got the whole world